Hi, everybody. We're so excited to have Sandy Chowcraft from Search Homeless Services with us today to talk about the grant that Search and the House of Tiny Treasures in particular received from Impact 100 Houston last year. And with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Sandy.
Okay, great. Hello, everybody. Thank y'all so much for having me. Search in the House of Tiny Treasures, all of us were so honored to be one of the finalists and one of your grantees last year. For those of you who don't know, the House of Tiny Treasures is an early childhood education program for children who are or have been homeless. And the House of Tiny Treasures, or HTT, as I will refer to it, I'm sure most of the presentation, is really a part of a larger organization that is Search Homeless Services. HTT is a truly special and magical place, and I'm really excited to tell you more about it today. But first, I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about search and homelessness in Houston, so you can understand how HTT really fits into the bigger picture. So let me try to share my screen. And y'all can see that, I hope. So, okay. Yeah, this is the part we didn't test. So give me a minute. It is not, there we go. Yeah, so Search is one of the leading organizations in Houston, really helping to work towards ending homelessness in our community. On any given day, approximately 3,200 people in Houston are experiencing homelessness. Over the course of a year, over 26,000 people will experience an episode of homelessness. And while, those numbers are way higher than we would like, we have made so much progress over the years. Since 2011, we have reduced homelessness from over 8,000 to as I said, just over 3,200 on any given day. There's an annual count that helps us, track our progress. And Houston is doing an amazing job. When you compare us to other major cities in Texas, we have made tremendous strides in reducing homelessness, whereas most of the other major Texas cities are struggling to make a dent in homelessness, or they are seeing increases in their homeless populations. And when you compare us, across the nation, again, Houston is really, really leading the way. When you look at New York or San Francisco, for every 1,000 residents, 9 or 10 people are experiencing homelessness. In Houston, 1 out of every 1,000 will be experiencing homelessness. And so, since 2010, 2012, Houston has reduced homelessness by more than 60%. We have housed more than 29,000 men, women, and children who were experiencing homelessness. And Houston has really become a model for the rest of the country in how to tackle homelessness. And Search Homeless Services has been a major part of this progress. We have gotten a lot of national press in Houston for our success in tackling homelessness. The New York Times did a large article really featuring Houston and, saying how, we haven't completely solved homelessness, but what we are doing really can suggest a way forward, and talking about how the system that we have, put into place here is really, proving to be a very effective solution. And so what is it that's making our solution so successful? How is it that Houston is doing so well in tackling homelessness when other cities, are really, really struggling? And it's a number of factors, but 2 of the major factors are all of the homeless service providers in the city have come together to collaborate and really work together to end homelessness in Houston. So we work together in a collaboration called The Way Home. There are over 100 different organizations all working with a shared goal. We have, each really looked to figure out who does what best, so that, everybody is not trying to do everything. There are so many different aspects of homelessness, and it takes so many different supports and resources to help people really get back on their feet, and everybody is helping in the way that they can contribute best. The other major difference is that we have completely changed our approach. In the old days, it was get your act together first, get clean, get sober, get a job, and then we will place you into housing. But we realized people cannot turn their lives around when they are living on the street, and you really need a stable place to call home before you can start to do anything else. And so we follow what is called a housing first approach, where we place people into homes of their own. To end homelessness, we know that the solution is housing with supports. And so once someone is in their home, then we really work with them to help them figure it out, to help them stabilize their lives so that they remain housed for the long term. And Search, as I mentioned, is really one of the leading organizations in the city doing this work. And it is very individualized work. We work very closely one-on-one with our clients, and really taking them every step of the journey from homelessness back to stability. This is a great oversimplification, but we start with our outreach teams that go out into the street and connect with individuals who are living under bridges, living in encampments, living in tents, to build a relationship with them, earn their trust, and start the process of moving them back into housing. We will assess them for housing, match them with the appropriate program. And then once it is someone's turn off the waiting list, we help them with navigation services through the whole move-in process, help them find a landlord who will accept them, even though they have evictions on their records, even though they have a criminal history, even if they're struggling with substance use, whatever the case may be, helping find that landlord, helping them through the process of signing the lease that is in their own name, helping them move in, providing them with everything that they need for the apartment. And at that point, they start to work with our housing case managers who help them stabilize their lives. Once someone is in housing, we continue to work with them to make sure that they have a source of income to meet their ongoing needs, to help them improve their health, so hopefully they can go back to work, help them build positive community so they don't gravitate back towards where they came from, helping them really learn how to manage life's ups and downs so that they don't find themselves homeless again. We realize that as long as poverty exists, homelessness is always going to happen. But our hope is that we are making it rare, brief, and non-recurring, so that when someone does become homeless, we have created this system where we can quickly get them back into a home of their own. And then we want to keep it from happening again, both in terms of that individual, we want them to remain stably housed, but also for the future generations, where we want to break the cycle. And that is what the House of Tiny Treasures is all about. It's really breaking that intergenerational cycle of poverty and homelessness. And so this is our beautiful House of Tiny Treasures, where we are serving, as I mentioned, children who are or have been homeless. So some of the families at the House of Tiny Treasures are currently homeless, living in shelter situations. None of them are living on the streets, but living in shelter situations. Most of them, however, have been housed through this community program that I just described, but we know they are not stable yet. Sadly, families with children are the fastest growing segment of the homeless population. In Texas, over 30% of children under the age of 5 are living in poverty. And these are the families that we are serving. And so the House of Tiny Treasures started back in 1992. Search started in 1989, and we very quickly saw that for our clients, our adult clients who had small children, they were stuck. If they wanted to go back to work, if they wanted to go back to school, they could not afford daycare, and they really had no other options. And so we started the House of Tiny Treasures. The original location was over near the University of Houston. This is our newer location, which is over in the 3rd Ward, and we can serve up to 64 children. We take them as young as 21 months of age and serve them up until they're 5 years old and they are ready to go to kindergarten. And we are working to make sure that when they get to kindergarten, they are prepared, they are ready to succeed, because we know, these early years in a child's life are critical for their brain development, their emotional development, and we really want to capture them in this small window of time where we can really make a difference. Children who are living in poverty will hear 1/3 the number of words as children from high-income families. And so when you're at the House of Tiny Treasures, you'll see that we are constantly talking to the children, reading to the children, singing to the children, helping them hear these words that they're not necessarily hearing at home, to help bridge that gap. Without a program like the House of Tiny Treasures, we know that our students are going to start kindergarten, 2 years behind their more advantaged peers. They will be more likely to drop out of high school. What we see is, the kids will get to kindergarten without a program like HTT. The kids get to kindergarten, they are not prepared, they are struggling, they get labeled, they get placed in special needs classes, they think they're stupid, they hate school, they drop out, and the cycle just repeats itself over and over again. And so we are doing everything within our power to make sure that they are ready, academically, emotionally, socially, when they get to kindergarten, and that they can thrive and succeed. We also know that children of poverty, and especially children who've experienced homelessness, are at much greater risk for behavioral problems, for developmental delays, anxiety, depression. We see with a lot of our kids impulsivity, and so again, we are trying to address all of these issues. And we also know that the children we are serving have experienced a lot of trauma, a lot of instability, have seen a lot of things that no child should see, and these adverse childhood experiences can have lifelong consequences on the child's development, on their mental health, on their physical health. And so beyond our curriculum that we provide for the children, we really provide them with an entire array of other services to help to address the trauma and instability that they have experienced. We provide play therapy, art therapy, speech therapy. This is Sarah Beth, our family play therapist, who works not just individually with the children through play therapy, but also is working with the families as a whole, to help the parents or the caregivers, also help support the families with positive discipline approaches, with bonding and attachment. We have a behavioral interventionist on staff who is working with the kids in the classrooms, as well as working with the teachers. As I described, our children are often more prone to behavioral challenges, and we've been seeing that a lot more frequently in the classroom. And so really working very closely with the kids and the teachers on that. And we also have a family services case manager who works very closely with each family to provide them with whatever the families may need. We know that the children are only going to be as strong and resilient as the family. And so we want to make sure that the home environment is as stable and nurturing as it can be, that the parents are reinforcing a lot of what we are trying to do at the school. And so we take this 2-generation approach where we are really working with the whole family, helping the parents, if they need to go back to school, if they're trying to get a job, if they're trying to get into housing, if they're needing to access other sources for their children, really providing wraparound support for the families and the children. And so this is Wendy and her family, and Wendy's one of my favorite stories from the House of Tiny Treasures. Wendy was living in Alabama in a very abusive relationship, and the third time that the same police officer showed up, he warned Wendy that this man she was living with was going to kill her if she did not leave, and he gave her $100. He said, "I'm going to stand here while you pack up the car." She loaded the girls up into the car. She had no idea where to go. She watched Joel Osteen on TV, and so she came to Houston. She ended up at the Star of Hope shelter and was really struggling with her mental health, with substance use, was barely able to take care of herself, let alone the girls. And the Star of Hope referred her to the House of Tiny Treasures. And Wendy, to this day, talks about how HTT literally saved their lives. While the girls were at the House of Tiny Treasures, Wendy was able to do what she needed to get healthy, to get clean, to get strong. She went back to school. She did so well in a community college. She got a full scholarship to the University of Houston. She graduated top of her class and went on to a very successful job in a large company. And since then has started her own graphic design company. The girls thrived at HTT. Wendy talks about how they would show up at HTT in the mornings, their clothes would be dirty, their hair would be a mess, and they would come home in the afternoon with clean clothes and the hair was brushed and braided, and that HTT really did become her family. And it's, as she says, the only family that she has ever known. The girls all went on to be in gifted and talented programs in their schools, and they are talented artists. They are thriving. They are happy. They have since moved out of Texas, but they stay in touch with us and with the staff at HTT because, as I said, it's their family. And this quote is from Wendy: "When you help one person, you truly do help to change the world." And obviously, not every story has that happy ending, but every day we make such a difference because of the support of organizations like yours in the lives of the children and the families that we are serving. We all know how expensive daycare is and preschool education is, and without HTT, these families would not be able to access this sort of program. And so I, want to thank all of you for being part of this work. The House of Tiny Treasures, unlike Search's other programs, is almost entirely funded through private support. We get a lot of government funding for our adult programs, very little for the House of Tiny Treasures other than funding for the food. The kids get breakfast, lunch, and a snack daily. But beyond that, it is private support. And your support really equates to, sponsoring one child for a full year at the House of Tiny Treasures. It is one of our more expensive programs, but we believe it is one of the most important investments that we can make by pouring into these children and making sure that when they get to kindergarten, they are ready and they will thrive and they will succeed. We teach them that they are full of potential and possibility, and they can be anything that they want to be, and that they are, surrounded and loved by a community of folks like you that make all of this possible. So I know I went through that pretty quickly, but want to just open it up for conversation so that we can chat more and just talk. I do want to invite all of you out for a tour anytime. Here's my contact information. I'll put it back up at the end when we're done. But talking about it and photos don't really do it justice. But if you come and you see the school and the children, you will see what a really magical place it is, and what a difference your support and involvement make. So I'm going to take my screen down. There we go.
Thank you so much, Sandy. It's I will definitely take you up on the tour, and I'm sure other members will as well. It's so nice to see the pictures of the campus. I would love to see it in person. I have a question for you just about the sort of, is there a commitment to the families, from the families, to commit their kids to attending House of Tiny Treasure? Like, what does that look like? What is that relationship? And is it year round?
Yeah, it's a good question, Jessica. It is a year-round program. We are there full day, year-round, because again, if the parents need to, do what they need to do to get their lives back on track, we have to be there all of the time. A number of years back, we did put some express expectations on the parents of, you have to be taking some positive steps in your life to be able to come to the House of Tiny Treasures. You need to be going back to work. You need to be going back to school. You need to be doing something positive. But in the end, that ended up, if a parent was not doing that, we didn't want to punish the child for the parents, unwillingness or inability to do that. And so we don't require that now. But as I said, we do work very closely with the families to help them, to encourage them, to make sure that they are doing whatever they can to make the home situation as stable and positive as it can be. And attendance is something that we have to work with on the families. We want the kids at the House of Tiny Treasures as much as they possibly can be. We know the more time they spend there, the better prepared they are going to be when they get to kindergarten. And we also want to build those habits for the parents, so that then when they do get to public school, they are in the habit of coming every day. So we're working with the families to help them understand this is not daycare, this is school, and you come every day. You don't choose when you want to come, when you don't want to come. So helping them build those habits. And we do all sorts of things to incentivize that. Just like when we went to school and you get the perfect attendance awards, we'll do that for the kids, and the kids then are encouraging the parents. Plus the kids love coming. So the kids are also like, I want to go to HTT today. Yeah.
And do y'all follow, so you can see the kids when they're, you said 21 months?
Mm-hmm.
And then through pre-K, so y'all follow a curriculum?
Yeah. Yes. So our curriculum is based on Reggio Emilia, which is similar in a lot of ways to Montessori. Reggio Emilia really has been more popular on the East Coast and the West Coast. It's not that common to hear of it down here, and it's really typically been for kids of privilege. So it's rare for kids like ours to have a curriculum like this. But part of it is teaching the kids, that they are valued citizens and parts of the community, that they have a voice and a right to be heard. To a degree, the kids get to drive the curriculum. So each classroom chooses what they want to study based on what the kids are interested in. So one class might be studying dinosaurs, one class might be studying colors. But if it's something that the kids are interested in, they are going to learn more effectively. But the hope is that they also walk away with a joy of learning, with a love of learning that they take throughout life. Another piece of the curriculum is teaching the kids about taking care of the environment. And you know, when you come to HTT, you see that we don't have a lot of, you know, there's not a big jungle gym play set. You know, outdoor play is really about exploring and using their imaginations, because we are trying to build creative thinkers. Art is a big piece of the curriculum, because again, it's that creative thinking. And just as much as focusing on the academics, the curriculum is also focusing on the social emotional learning, which we know is equally as important to their success when they get to kindergarten. So making sure that the children are able to focus and self-regulate, that they learn how to problem solve and how to negotiate conflict with their friends, and how to interact with adults, and you know, the soft skills that are just as important as the academic skills. And so, you know, as I said, you know, each classroom might be studying different things, and the teachers are, you know, tailoring the curriculum so that the students are still getting their language arts, their math, their science. But if it's something they're interested in, then, you know, they're going to have more fun. But then always incorporating those social emotional skills as well. Yeah. Great question.
Sandy, you said you have 64 children right now. And is that kind of the sweet spot that you hope to stay at, or are there plans? Because I imagine it's probably a drop in the bucket as far as the need for kids getting education. Are there plans or hopes to expand?
That's a tricky question. So yeah, and we actually right now we're not at full capacity right now. So we can have up to 64 children. Right now we have closer to 50. What we have seen, well, one, as I said, it's a year-round program. So, you know, at the end of August, we had a number of kids who graduated and went on to kindergarten. So we're still enrolling and backfilling. What we have seen since COVID is a small drop in enrollment. And as we talk to some of our counterparts around the city, they're experiencing the same thing. A lot of the families have just chosen, you know, not to send their children back yet. And so we are starting to see that amp back up. But yeah, we're still seeing this impact from COVID. And so at this point, we're really not at a point where we would consider adding on another, you know, expanding or adding on another school. As I mentioned, it really is our most expensive program. When you look at it on a per client basis, it is very, very expensive, and it is all supported by private fundraising. And so in order to expand, we would have to be very sure that we have the ability to sustain it. And yeah, we're not at that point yet.
That makes sense.
It's, you know, it is because of all the extra services that we do provide that these families do need. It really does become, you know, it's like if you were paying private tuition at a you know, top rate preschool. So we would love to be able to serve more kids. And you know, when we opened this location where we are now, we did a what's the word? An assessment, feasibility. Yeah. Anyway, we looked at how many kids really needed it, and it was, you know, in the thousands. And so, you know, one of the other things that we're seeing is as families are moving back into housing, for them to be able to afford an apartment, quite often they are having to move so far away from the center of the city now that it is no longer feasible for them to come to the House of Tiny Treasures. I mean, we provide transportation for the kids who are within a certain radius. But beyond that, you know, we can provide bus fare for the families to get there. But, you know, if you're out in Richmond, Rosenberg, it's just not practical to get your kids into the center of the city anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah. Other questions? I think something Jessica had asked, made me think about this, as far as tracking our kids, to see how they're doing, once they leave our care. And so that is something that we are working to be able to do better than we are able to now. It is a challenge for us to track them, and for several reasons. One, by nature, the families that we are serving are very transient, and that makes it difficult. Oftentimes too, as they leave us, as they get more stable, they don't always necessarily want to think back to the tougher times. But the House of Tiny Treasures traditionally has been part of the United Way's Bright Beginnings program, and Bright Beginnings would track our kiddos if they went into HISD schools. So for kids who are leaving HTT and going into HISD schools, they would track them through the 8th grade. And what they found was that, when they get to kindergarten, they were on par or above par, they were fine. And that lasted all the way through the 8th grade. We were really curious to see, okay, we're getting them ready, they're good to go for kindergarten, but then is it going to drop off after that? So it was, reassuring to see that no, it continues all the way through. And so we're looking at ways that we're no longer part of that Bright Beginnings program. We decided not to stay in that, but so looking at other ways that we can still continue to track the kids once they leave our care. And our hope is that we get these kiddos as toddlers, and that they stay with us all the way through until they go to kindergarten. That is, of course, not always the case, because there is, the families are moving, they move, back to be with family in another state, or, oftentimes they're kind of chasing that next free rent special. And we lose families. But, last year when we had our graduation ceremony for the kids, I think we had 13 kids graduate, and 6 of them had been with us since they were toddlers. And so it does happen frequently. And that's the ideal. Again, the more time that the kids spend at the House of Tiny Treasures, we know the better off they're going to be.
I have another question for you about 2012, when the big change happened and everyone started
Yes.
working together. What was kind of the impetus? Clearly there was a need for it, but I'm curious about
Right.
how it all kind of generated.
Right. Yes. So at that time, Houston was 6th in the nation in terms of homeless populations, and HUD, Housing Urban Development, came in and said, this is not okay, y'all need to do a better job. And basically, any funding that the community was getting for homeless services was kind of on the line. And so, we were basically, told we got to do better, and, to form this collaboration. And now, many other cities have formed these collaborations, which is somewhat mandated by HUD, but they haven't all been as effective. And some of the reasons why ours has been more effective, a lot of it was even just timing. At the time, when this happened, Anise Parker was in office, and this was such an important issue for her. I mean, homelessness really was her passion issue. So she was very committed to it. We had some recent changes at the housing authorities at the high levels, and they came to the table. And that is a major piece of how this whole system works, because they're providing subsidies that allow people to stay housed. And since Anise's time too, Bill White was very supportive of this. Sylvester Turner has been very supportive of this. And so Houston has been able to do it more effectively than some of the other cities, even though these other cities also have these collaborations, but there's not as much buy-in from all of the important players. So we're anxious to see what happens with the next mayoral election, and hoping that whoever is elected, this is something that is important to them as well, so we can keep the momentum going.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Jess got to step away, so I'll kind of jump in.
Okay,
I suppose. Does would anyone else like to ask a question while we have Sandy here?
Well, I want to reiterate my thanks for y'all's support. We have loved being part of Impact 100 and would love to have all of you come out and see. I know Michelle McGovern, one of your members and board members, is a regular volunteer. She helps out in our kitchen. She's one of our reading buddies, and would welcome more of you. And Phoenix is on. Phoenix is our community partnerships manager, and I think Kristen, I just gave her your email address this morning. We've got some upcoming events to see if maybe y'all want to be part of those in a bigger
Wonderful.
way.
Thank you. That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Sandy. It was such a pleasure to hear, more in depth about your programs and what you've been up to. And we appreciate your time. And I think you said you would share your contact information again, if you want to pop that back up in case anybody thinks of a question that they wanted to ask you. And we will post this a video of this conversation on our YouTube channel so others can see it as well.
Great. Very good. Again, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to share with you. Come see
Thank
us.
you. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.